Hey guys, Magnus Robert here, bringing you another video. Now, I decided that I was trying to think like which videos would be good to redo. A lot of my top 10 videos are quite outdated now, and I could possibly do a redo on some of them. But one video I really enjoy doing is the costumes ranked, so I decided to actually redo all my costume rankings. Now, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to structure these videos is I'm going to do it character by character. Of course, some characters have way more costumes than others, so there's certain characters I'm not going to touch on, but I'm definitely going to touch on Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, Maggie, Mr. Burns, and possibly Willie? I don't know, Willie has quite a few as well. But yeah, I'm just going to touch on costume. I'm going to only do characters that have 5 or more costumes. I won't do any others. So any requests you have, definitely leave them down below. But I'm going to do the Simpsons family first. And that's how I'm going to kind of do it. So we're going to start it off with Homer. I think Homer has the most costumes in the game. He has 20 costumes. I don't think any of the other characters have that many costumes. So it's going to be interesting to go through all of them. So I've ranked them from worst to best. And yeah, so you might disagree with some of my lists. I'll try to explain my reasonings as best as possible. So let's get into number 20. So for number 20, the worst costume in the game, I've actually gone with Barbarian Homer. Now my list has changed a little bit from the last time I did this list. I've kind of reconsidered some arguments, and I've also just kind of looked through the costumes myself and tried to determine based on a couple of factors. Looks is definitely one, tasks is a big one, and I somewhat look at price, but not always. It really depends, because I don't know, it's not fair to kind of knock the premium stuff down just because it costs a little bit, at least I believe anyway, unless it's ridiculously priced. So the reason why I put Barbarian Homer at the bottom is, although yes, it has it's not premium and it's free and you can get it. Well, you could have got it in the Clash of Clones event. My biggest issue with it is it's not very iconic. Now this is I'm pretty sure is a tapped out original. I can't find anywhere in the actual Simpsons show where it was seen. At least it wasn't seen very kind of permanently. I don't think the tasks are that great as well. So you obviously got in terms of his animations even. So you got express his rage against noobs, confront gold farmers, and go on an X-Layer bender. I just don't think they're particularly that great. Now his questline, I don't think is. I did a quick skim through it. It's not great either. I don't think it's okay, I guess, but it's not amazing. I just think overall the character is very bland and very uninspired and not very iconic. Although you could argue he looks a bit cool. I don't know, I just think he looks kind of lame, really, in my opinion. I don't think his tasks or his animations are particularly that great. So that's the very bottom of the list, Barbarian Homer. Next up is Holliday Homer. Similar argument. I don't think he is a tapped out original. Now I liked the concept of this costume when it first came out. I was actually like pretty happy with it. I thought, wow, that's actually really cool that they combined all the different holidays and made it one costume. But then really thinking about it, it's not great. It's not, like, compared to the other costume, it's really not that great. I think it's just a bit lame overall. It's not particularly it's not a Simpsons, I guess, original thing. It's a tapped out original costume from what I can tell. And yeah, I just don't think it's particularly amazing. Now, of course, although it's not premium, it does only have 2 tasks, 2 animations: hop around town and shoot people with Cupid arrows. I think the shoot people with Cupid arrows is okay, but the other one's not amazing. It's okay, I guess, but they're both okay animations, I guess, but I just think compared to the other costumes, it just doesn't feel very iconic. And although, yes, it was free, and so was the Barbarian Homer one, I just don't think that means anything. And in later years, I completely forgot this costume existed. I had the kind of a moment when I saw it, and I was like, oh yeah, that was a costume. And to me, it was quite forgettable as well. So yeah, that's why this is that low on the list. Fireman Homer is number 18. This is a Simpsons original, so that's a good thing. My biggest issue with this costume is there's one animated task, and that is barbecue over a fire. There is no other animated tasks, and to me that just kind of defeats the purpose of costumes. They're meant to give, as well, yeah, they're meant to make our characters look different. They're also meant to give our characters new animations and new kind of funny little tasks to do. Now, of course, obviously all of them can't be animated, and I understand that, but I expect at least 2 per character. I think that's a fair, a fair thing to argue. There should be at least 2 per character or per costume. And this costume only has 1, and that's the reason I kind of am ranking it quite low. I also just don't think it looks particularly that cool. I know it's obviously from the episode, and that's the reason why it was added, and I understand that, but I just think they definitely could have given us more animations. There was more funny things he did in the episode, or they could have come up with an original animation. They have done that in the past, and I'm not against that. If the actual kind of character or costume in the show didn't do anything particularly funny, I'm fine with them making, obviously, tapped out original animations, if you will. But this one just didn't add that at all, and for that reason, it's a little lower. So yeah, that's number 17. No, 18. Camera Hat Homer. This is our first premium one on the list. This was a premium costume in the Secret Agents event, and it cost 50 donuts. So it's not a terrible price for a costume. It's quite reasonable. In terms of its animations, they're okay. I quite like the Get Chased by Bees animation. The collect footage of his life is a little It's not a great animation. The main reason why I guess it's higher than the others is I think it just looks funnier. And yeah, it's as simple as that, really. It's just looks cooler. Plus, obviously, it has 2, I would say, good enough animations. The premium is taken into account, but I think it's reasonable, so I'm not going to deduct points for that. I think it's a fair price for it. It's not, like, ridiculously expensive. Yeah, just overall, I think it's a meh costume, I'd say. It's not bad, it's just kind of meh. So yeah, that's Camera Hat Homer. Ice Cream Man Homer. Now, this originally was my worst costume on my list. I made it the worst costume. The reason why I've kind of elevated a little bit is after looking at it, I think the animations are quite good, and also the costume itself, I really like the look of it. Although there is one big reason why it's not any higher than what it is now, and that is the price. It is quite ridiculously priced. Now, it's 120 donuts. It was a Gills deal. It was 120 donuts. So you obviously got the Ice Cream Man Homer, and you got the ice cream truck as well. And so for a decoration and a costume, I just think 120 is a little bit too expensive. Maybe 70 or 80 donuts would have been fairly reasonable, but I feel like 120 is asking too much, and for that reason I've kind of put it lower than it could be. Lower than it could be. It could be a little bit higher because it is a cool looking costume, and I think the animations are fairly good. I know obviously it was re-released eventually, so you can get it for much cheaper than that, but I think regardless the original price should be taken into account somewhat, and in this regard that's why it's lower than it could be, but although it is definitely a cool costume to have. Next up is Ninja Homer. There's a similar argument for this one. Originally it was 120 donuts and it came with the practice snake, and so it's another kind of, I guess, costume decoration combo, and it was fairly expensive, and I think for that reason it kind of has to be taken into account, and it kind of deducts points, I guess. So that's the reason why I've put the Ninja Homer here. I really like this costume though. There's something about it. I really love the animations. I really like the fake whack pretend snakes one, and obviously the twirl whacking stick. I don't know, there's something about the animations that are really quirky. Also, this costume just has a special place in my heart because the Whacking Day event was I guess the first event that I truly kind of experienced and I was truly excited for, and I guess I remember I watched all of Nuclear Videos HD's videos, and I was really happy about it, and I was so excited for this update. So I guess that's the reason why this one has a kind of place in my heart, and I think it was the first premium thing I ever bought. I'm pretty sure. So it to me it's kind of got a special place, like I say. So I guess I'm a little bit biased in that regard, but I think it's got cool animations, but it has to be noted that the price was very ridiculous at the start. Although recently it's gone down to literally 20 donuts, so there was one point you could have got this for 20 donuts, so it's definitely decreased in price, which is good. Next up is Cowboy Homer. Now, originally I put this right at the bottom of the list, but looking at the animations, I really love the Homer practicing horseback riding animation. I think that is a really kind of hilarious little animation to have. So for that reason, I've kind of put it a little bit higher than I originally anticipated. The other one, practice lassoing, is an okay animation in itself as well. Obviously, that's done at the Simpsons house, but it's pretty cool. This character was free as well, which is always a good thing, and it has 2 animations and some other tasks as well. Of course, it was released in the Wild West event. Yeah, and I think it looks okay. It doesn't look terrible. It's not the coolest looking costume there is, for sure, but I think with the tasks, the one really good task and the one decent task, and the fact it's free, and also I just think it looks, it looks cool enough. I think for that reason I'm putting it here. So yeah. Next up, we have the Homer referee costume. This is a free costume that was released in the Tap Ball event, and then it was re-released in the Marge the Bat 2019 promotion. So both times it was a free costume for players to get, which is always a plus. So that's why I guess it's a little bit higher than some of the others. I think the 2 tasks, the 2 animations it has is referee tap ball and bicycle kick. One of them is pretty cool. I definitely like I think the referee one is fine. The bicycle kick one is pretty funny though. Yeah, 2 pretty cool animations. And of course it's free, and it was re-released as free as well, which is definitely a plus. I like it when they do that, when they re-release stuff in later events as free, instead of making what was once free, making that premium. I really do like it when they make stuff free again. So in that regard, I think it's a little bit higher than it would be. Also, I just think the costume looks fine. I mean, it doesn't look exactly amazing, so that's why I'm not going to put it any higher. But it doesn't look bad. So yeah. Next up, we have Pimple Homer, which is definitely, I think this is the most recent costume of Homer we've actually got, which is actually quite surprising, that it was actually a while ago we got a costume for Homer. This, of course, was added in the Pimples events, obviously, and it was a free character, so all players could obviously get this character. It has 2 animations, Celebrate and Read Bowling, Bowl with Style. Which both are kind of, I would say, simple animations, but I like the bowl with style. It looks okay. Of course, it's a free costume, so that's always a good thing. In terms of how it looks, I like the collections, the aspect of it, I guess. And the Fireman Homer sort of fell into this in some regard. It's kind of like a collection of costumes. So you don't want to have just Pimple Homer. You want to have Pimple Harpoo and Pimple Burns and Pimple Mo as well. So you want to have, you want to collect them all. So I think it's more of a kind of collection costume, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to put it any higher, but I definitely think it's a cool costume. It's a fine one for Homer for sure. And next up we have Conductor Homer. So of course this was added in the monorail event, and of course it was a free character for everyone to get. So any players could have got it. I don't believe it's ever been re-released, which is kind of weird, but of course it has 2 animations, practice monorail conducting and air out bitey. Actually, you may be able to get it anyway because you can do the monorail stuff even though the event's ended, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, yeah, so you got two animations, practice monorail conducting and air out bitey. I like both of them. They're both quite cool. They're cool animations, and I think the costume is somewhat iconic. Of course, it's from the Marge versus the Monorail episode, which is one of the best episodes of The Simpsons for sure. A lot of people agree with that. I tend to say it's my favorite just because it's the easiest episode to say. I don't really have a particular. I find it really hard to say what my favorite episode is. But whenever people ask me, I always just say Marge versus the Monorail because it's definitely in my top 5. Yeah, I think it's a really iconic costume, and it's got 2 pretty solid tasks, so I think it deserves this spot. And with that is it for the top, I guess, top 10 worst, if you want. So now we are coming into our top 10 best. So starting off at number 10 is Pieman Homer. So the reason why I guess Pieman Homer is higher than I originally expected, because I'm not a massive fan of this costume, but I have to appreciate the fact it has 3 animated tasks. So you obviously got Ulma practice, reenact the Mayan collapse, and go on a maze binge. 3, I would say they're both pretty cool. All three of them are pretty cool tasks. Of course, this was a 2012 costume. It was originally free. You unlocked it through like a little kind of quest thing with the Mayan god. And then eventually it was re-released for 300 donuts, but that was a big bundle with a bunch of different stuff. I would say that its re-release was a little expensive, so in that regard I wouldn't put it any higher for that reason, but I think the actual look of it, I think it looks cool enough. I mean, it definitely, yeah, it looks really awesome. And this costume kind of started a little bit of a trend, because they actually released the Crazy Iguana Lady costume for Crazy Cat Lady, which I guess in a way it kind of made its own collection in some regards. So I don't know, I find that kind of funny, but yeah, I think this costume has 3 cool animations, so I think it deserves the number 10 spot in that regards. But definitely there's costumes better than it for sure. Cool Homer is next, and the reason why Cool Homer is this high is pretty much just because of the sheer amount of animations it has. Now, this character has 5 animations. So you got style goatee, walk around acting superior, show off his fixie, enjoy a Duff Blue ribbon, and listen to indie rock. So he's got 5 animated tasks, and that is insane. A lot of characters, or characters don't even have that many tasks. So for a costume to have 5 animations is really, really awesome, and I guess that's the reason why I'm elevating this one a lot higher than it originally was on my list. I don't think it particularly looks that amazing. Honestly, I'm not a massive fan of the look, and so for that regard, I'm not going to put it any higher, but I just love the fact that it has so many animations. It's definitely a cool thing to have. Now, this character was originally free in the Day the Earth Stood Cool tie-in event, and eventually it became a premium character after, so obviously you could have got it in the yard sale or the Much Or Poo About Something promotional. So it essentially became a premium character after it was originally free, but it was originally free for players who were playing when the game obviously was in 2012 when that episode tie-in came out, so it was available for people. So I think for that reason, and the fact it's got quests, that definitely elevates this costume a lot higher than I originally anticipated, or I'm not basing this just on looks, so that's why the costume is this high. So that's it, Cool Homer. Number 8 is, of course, Strongman Homer. Now, this is a little bit of a surprising one. I think I don't know. This costume is weird to me. I like it. I kind of like the grey scale of it, the kind of the color of the actual Homer, because of course it aligns with the episode's, I guess, filter. Obviously, it comes from a Treehouse of Horror, I believe, or at least it's a non-canon segment. Yeah, it's a Treehouse of Horror costume, so I imagine it comes from a Treehouse of Horror episode. Of course, the reason why I love this costume a lot is because you actually unlocked it through like a little quest line. So there was like a little trivia from the episode, and you had to, of course, answer that right. So yeah, I don't know. I like that aspect. I like that way of unlocking costumes, actually quizzing people, quizzing players to actually unlock stuff. And yeah, there's something about that. It just, to me, that feels like a really cool way of unlocking something, and I really wish they would do that in later events. But yeah, I think it looks cool enough. The animations are decent as well. It of course has 2 animations, which is standard, which is Impress Rupees with his strength, or Rupees with his strength, and Piggyback Mr. Burns. Piggyback Mr. Burns one is pretty funny, and I like that. So yeah, I think it's definitely a decent costume, and yeah, I think it deserves a spot this high, mainly for the way it's unlocked, but also because it just is a decent costume in its own respect. Next is Sunday Morning Homer. So I really like this costume, and there is a big reason why I'm a massive fan of this costume. Now, some people aren't, and I understand why, because it's not exactly, it's not like Mayan Homer or kind of Conductor Homer, or it's not like an episode. It's not something iconic from a particular episode, really. This costume is really, I would say, Homer's, I guess, one of his kind of main other outfits than his normal kind of white shirt, blue jeans setup. Of course, we've seen Homer like this a lot in his dressing gown. So in some regards, you could say the costume itself is iconic, not just for one episode, but for the whole of the show. We see Homer in this get-up a while. It's kind of why I actually would like the Simpsons family's like posh outfits, or the outfits they wear when they go to church and stuff. It's kind of why I would like those outfits too. But this one just, of course, we've seen Homer like this in many, many episodes. It wasn't just the Homer the Heretic episode. We saw him like this in multiple episodes. And so in that regard, I think this costume definitely deserves a high spot just for that reason alone. But on top of that, it's got 2 cool animations, greet animal friends, I quite like, and dance in his underwear is definitely funny as well. So, yeah, I would say two cool animations. Plus, it did cost, obviously, it didn't cost anything. It wasn't a premium character. You unlocked it through the Homer the Heretic event. Of course, it was the first prize you unlocked, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, so it's a cool costume with cool tasks. And it's got a very iconic feel to it. So that's why it's this high. Number 6, Deep Space Homer, another iconic costume in a lot of respects. Of course, this is from the Deep Space Homer episode, and the Deep Space Homer, of course, you unlock it in the Deep Space Homer event. So this was the Part 2 prize. Of course, it was free, so because you unlock it. It's got a couple animations. Obviously, you got Walk Like a Hero, which is cool, and Gather Insect Specimens, which I really like as well. So, kind of 2 iconic things, kind of scenes from the episode. Of course, it's also got a lot of tasks just in its own right too. Obviously, you got like launch spaceship, shop for astro food, put out rocket fire, etc., etc. Although these aren't animated, the fact it's got a large variety of tasks of different hours. You obviously got a 6-second one, a 60-minute one, a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour, 7-hour, an 8-hour, 12-hour, and a 24-hour. The fact that there's a large range of kind of tasks, I think, is a good thing as well, because obviously if you need to set Homer on a certain time, like, say if you're on a certain schedule in your real life and you can only go on the game at a certain time, you can kind of time it. You have plenty of options to kind of time it to your best convenience. And I just think it looks cool on its own. When Homer's walking around like he in this costume, he just looks awesome. I don't know, there's something about the astronaut suit. It just makes him look really cool. So there it is, Deep Space Homer. Number 5 is, of course, Santa Homer. How could I not give it to anything else? Now, Santa Homer, the reason why it's I really wanted to put it higher than this. I wanted it in my top 3, but I just think, considering some of the other costumes, I can't put it any higher, but this is definitely an awesome costume. It's iconic. It's from the very first episode, so for that reason, I've got to put it as high as I possibly can. Of course, it is a premium character, which is, I guess, you could argue that kind of puts it down a little bit. I don't think it's too expensive. It comes with the Santa's Village, which is a decent building in its own right. Now, it was originally 200 donuts when it was first released, which obviously I would say is definitely overpriced. A building and a character, I think, should be 150 at the most. A building and a costume, honestly, in my opinion, I think 120 should be the price of it. Although this is a cool costume, so I would argue that it's okay if it's 150. But 200 is definitely expensive, and so I had to knock it down. I couldn't put it any higher than it is here, and so that's why it's number 5. But in recent years, in 2014 and 2016, it was brought right down to 80 donuts, which is perfect. That's a brilliant price. That's actually a really good deal. So, in that respect, I think, although I've knocked it down a few points, I don't think it should massively be knocked down because, of course, in recent years, they've fixed the price. So, yeah, I'm putting it here. I think it's awesome. It's got 3 animated tasks. Of course, it's iconic in a lot of ways too, but the 3 animated tasks, of course, are the Get Stuck in the Chimney, which is hilarious, Do the Rounds, which is a cool one, and Fly the Santa Sleigh, which is awesome because you see him flying across your whole town, which is a really cool animation. I really like those animations where you can see characters flying over your whole town. So it's got, like I said, although it was expensive when it was first released, I think they fixed the price in recent years, and also it's got 3 really, really cool animations, and that's just cool. So yeah, Santa Homer is number 5. Number 908. So, of course, this is Homer's Stonecutter costume. Now, before, when I was talking about the Pimple costume, of course, I kind of mentioned the fact that the Pimple Homer is kind of a collection It's kind of a collection costume in a lot of ways, in the fact that you get it to fit, to complete a collection of costumes that you're collecting. Now, number 908 is a lot like that in some regards, because of course it's a Stonecutter costume, and you kind of want to get all the Stonecutter costumes for all the characters. Now, the number 908 is definitely awesome because it's got 4 animated tasks, plus it's an iconic as hell costume. Now, of course, it's from the Stonecutter episode, which is definitely one of my favourite episodes as well. I would say it's in my top 10, maybe not top 5, but it's definitely in my top 10. I really do love that episode. Of course, it wasn't a premium character when it was originally released, but in 2015, 2018, and 2019, it was re-released as a premium character. So I guess I would deduct points for that in some regards, but I don't know. I just think I give it the kind of benefit of the doubt, because I don't know, I said that for the other costume before. I didn't say that for the other costume before, but I don't know. I'm not going to deduct points for that. It's not a terrible thing. I mean, it's not great, but yeah, it has 4 really, really cool animations. Be the Chosen One is pretty cool. The Sing the Stonecutter song, that includes all the other Stonecutters as well. Well, it can include the other Stonecutters as well, which is really awesome. The Get Paddled, which I think is really awesome. Obviously, he's getting paddled by Jasper. And then Feast at the Stonecutter's Lodge is cool. Wait, not that one. Get Paddled. Oh, sorry. Wear the Stone of Triumph. That's the one. Which is probably my favourite Homer animation there is. Obviously, he's kind of trailing the big rock along. I really love that task. I think it's funny as hell. So yeah, 4 really, really cool animations. Plus, it's an iconic as hell costume. Although, yes, in recent years it was premium, I don't know, I think it deserves the number 4 spot. It's cool as hell. So that's number 908. Number 3 is King Size Homer. This is a funny as hell costume. And I think in terms of animations, I'm kind of leaning towards saying this has got probably the coolest collection of animations. Of course, you've got the letting it all hang out one on the beach, which is funny as hell. The riding around town one, which is funny, and the Mr. Burns whipping King Size Homer into shape is also really iconic as well. Of course, it is from the King Size Homer episode. I think it's the Fat and the Flubbiest, is it called? I'm not sure, but it's a really funny one. Of course, this was originally released in the Thanksgiving event. It was originally free, and then after 2015 and 2018, it became premium. It's got 3 animations, which is great. Of course, the letting it hang out is done at a beach or river, which is really funny as well. I like it when they use the kind of environments, especially, I don't know, something about using the beach. I like it when the characters use the beach. And yeah, it's just a funny looking costume. I think it's funny as hell. I mean, it makes Homer bigger as well, which is cool. So yeah, kind of, it's all the reasons I have. I don't really have any negatives for it, to be honest. It's just a cool as hell costume. And I guess these kind of top 3 kind of come down to look. So that's number 3, King Size Homer. Mr. Plow is number 2. Now, this is just iconic. I mean, this is probably one of the best kind of Christmas episodes there is. Of course, this was originally released in the 2013 winter event or Christmas event, whatever you want to call it. It did cost 90 donuts originally. Now, this was in 2012 and 2014. In 2013, you had a chance to get it for free for the spin tokens. If you earned a spin token, you could have got it for free. So there is the chance that you could have got it for free, but yeah, it was obviously originally premium. So in some respects, you could argue that it doesn't deserve to be in the top 3 because it's not free. But I would say that 90 donuts is not terrible for a costume. It's a little expensive for my liking. I think 50 donuts is a fair price, but for how iconic it is and how awesome it is and how how cool the costume is in general, I think I'm leaning towards the argument that the price is not so bad. I think maybe if it was 80 donuts, I could argue that point a bit better. But so I think the thing that stops this from being the best costume is honestly 10 donuts in my opinion. And yeah, so of course it has awesome tasks. It has the Mr. Plow attempting to melt snow. It's the one with the little plutonium rod. It's funny. The Mr. Plow clearing snow, which is funny. The Mr. Plow eating the key to the city, which is funny as well. And then there was one more animation. It was the Sing Mr. Plow's song. So 4 animations, which is really awesome for a character. I don't expect costume. I don't expect costumes to have that many tasks. I think 2 at the most is best, but when it has more than that, of course I'm not going to complain. I think that's a really good thing. So number 2 is Mr. Plow. It's iconic, it's got awesome animations, and although it is pricey, I think it's somewhat worth it. So yeah, number 2 is Mr. Plow. Anyway, now we're going to get to the number 1. It's the same as before, so anyone who's watched my list probably knows what number 1 is going to be, but can we have that drum roll, please? Of course, it's Pieman Homer. So why do I pick Pieman Homer? Well, first of all, it's probably my favourite Homer alter ego. There's something about it, it's so ridiculous, this kind of spoof on superheroes. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. He's got his underwear on over his kind of, I guess, suit. The cape, the fact that he wears like that mask as well is funny, and the fact that his kind of power is just throwing pies at people. There's something about it. It's just so Homer, and I think it's the funniest alter ego there is. Also, it's free, and it wasn't just free in the original event. It was free in the Superheroes 2015. It was then free again in the Superheroes the Part 2 in 2016. It was free again in the Superheroes Return in 2017, and it was free for a 4th time in the Superpowers 2018 event. So it was free 4 years in a row, which is an amazing thing. Like a lot of kind of costumes or characters that are originally free don't become free in later events. They tend to become premium, and I think for that reason it elevates it a lot. It looks cool as hell. I mean, how can you argue this costume doesn't look cool as hell? I think it just makes Homer look so ridiculous and funny. The animations, it has 3 animations, so 1 more than I would say is needed, but nevertheless, that's a good thing. Obviously, try on corset, which is funny as hell. It's Homer kind of with his belly out. Punish wrongdoers. A little dude kind of spawns, he throws pies at him. And then you've got train for future conflict as well, which is a cool little animation that takes place on the Radioactive Man statue. So yeah, it's got 3 cool animations. It was free for 4 years in a row, and it looks cool as hell. I mean, what more do you want from a costume? And that's why I just think Pieman Homer is the best Homer costume there is. Maybe not the best costume in the game, but definitely in the top 5, I would say. It's just funny as hell, and it comes from one of my favourite events, my favourite ever event, and that is the Superheroes event. I just think, hands down, the Superhero event was the most fun to play. So yeah, that is my list. Tell me your guys' thoughts. Would you rank them differently? This turned out as a long ass video. Obviously that's mainly because there is 20 costumes for Homer. The other ones probably will be a lot shorter just because there's a lot less costumes to cover, but that is all 20 of Homer's costumes ranked from worst to best. I purposely didn't include any of the young Homer costumes. Obviously he's got his prom time Homer, plus there's the retired Homer as well, and there's all the little Homer doppelgangers. I didn't want to include them because I don't think it's fair to really rank them differently, so I might do a separate list talking about the Homer doppelgangers, and we'll include everything, you know, the retired Homer, the young Homer, the baby Homer. We'll include all of that, so I might do that in the future as well. So yeah, tell me your thoughts on this, and I'll see you next video. Goodbye.